I would be in the hospital until I deliver, whether that be today, next week, or months from now. I didn't let myself believe in the hope because I knew I couldn't handle it. If I let myself believe, then be disappointed again. He put me in the Trendelenburg position. It's where your feet are above your head. He gave me some more painkillers, and we held tight until a room in labor and delivery opened. Jory called our parents to let them know what was going on, and I told him to have my parents come immediately. I knew we would need family with life experience to handle plans afterwards if this didn't all work out. Within 30 minutes, my mom and stepdad were packed and on their way from Logan, Utah down here to Phoenix. 11:30 a.m. Once they moved me up to labor and delivery, my doctor gave me an epidural, with much disapproval from the nurses and the other doctors, because they had me on medication to stop my contractions. An epidural, in their minds, was unnecessary at that point. But he knew, even with the painkillers, I was in so much pain and discomfort, as well as emotional hell, that an epidural would lift some of that pain away, especially if they weren't going to be able to stop the contractions. He was right, and I could never thank him enough for that decision. By 9 p.m., the magnesium was not stopping my contractions, and the ultrasound was now showing the baby's head coming down the vaginal canal. It was only time before my water broke. I already knew their attempts weren't going to work, so I was prepared as well as I could be for the next step. They stopped the magnesium and gave me Pitocin to induce labor, and told me I would probably deliver in a few hours. I had now been in labor for almost 22 hours. My doctor left the hospital to go home and shower, and then he'd come right back. I don't remember if he actually went home, but that's what I heard. Seems pretty silly. At 9:24 p.m., I felt pressure and called the nurse. 9:25 p.m., my water broke. The nurse then came in, verified it had broke, and said she'd call the doctor and be right back. 9:28 p.m., I called the nurse again. I felt really strong pressure. I knew my baby was coming. I tried to stay as still as possible, because I knew if I moved a muscle, he would come out. In those split seconds, Jory and I wondered why in the hell the nurse would not stay in the room. Did she not believe me? 9:29 p.m. I had Jory call the nurse again. We told her the baby was seriously on its way, like now. 9:30 p.m. With only Jory and I in the room, our baby was born. I felt the baby kicking in my leg. The nurse came in and was shocked to see our baby was out. She ran out and grabbed another nurse who came in and took charge. Jory cut the cord and watched as they examined the baby and asked if we knew the sex. We didn't know. We were supposed to find out tomorrow. She announced that we had a baby boy. She wrapped him in a blanket and handed him to me. I immediately fell into tears and didn't stop bawling for at least an hour. I held him and I cried. Every time I touched his skin, he would make a fist. His eyes were still fused shut, but he opened his mouth and he smiled. Even though we know babies aren't supposed to smile, but he smiled. Jory said he looked just like my older brother Shane. I thought he had Jory's lips. He was perfect in every way. Perfect fingers, perfect toes. We named him Jack Kendrick Johnson. Jack from Captain Jack Sparrow and Pirates of the Caribbean, my favorite movie. And my maiden name is Kendrick. He was 9.5 inches long and weighed 9.5 ounces. And it's actually, he was 9.8 ounces. But back then I put 9.5. My parents arrived around about 10:30 p.m. After an hour, I sort of kicked them out so Jory and I could spend private time with our son. We continued to hold Jack and talk to him. We tried to stop crying and enjoy this time we had with him, knowing it wasn't going to be much longer. The nurses continued to come in and check for a pulse, each time surprising us how strong our little boy was. Sometime between 12:30 and 1 a.m. on September 1st, 2006, our son Jack passed away in my arms. The awesome nurses at the hospital let us bathe Jack and brought in some outfits to choose from to dress him in, and the most perfect tiny crocheted blanket to wrap him in. She took his footprints and handprints for us and later made a plaster cast of both his foot and handprints. Later she would also take him to get pictures done that we'll receive 3 weeks after we leave the hospital. I already obviously have them. We had taken a few pictures of Jack before we bathed him, although I've yet to look at them already. I already wish I had taken more. We continued to hold Jack until around 2:30 in the morning. I was so exhausted and couldn't keep my eyes open another second. The nurse came in and took Jack to take some photos and created the plaster cast for us. She would bring him back later to sleep in a room with us. I passed out and slept until 6 a.m. when the nurse came in to say she was going off shift. We could never thank her enough for all the mementos she created for us and all the memories she helped us create.